The Major Appliances Millionaires Club, created from the latest consumer appliance research by Euromonitor International, is exclusive to companies that sell more than 1 million major appliance units a year. In 2010, the latest research shows that 40 companies broke the 1 million mark.
The club has actually grown over the last 10 years. It's actually grown over a third, and there's now 40 companies actually who are within the Major Appliances Millionaires Club in 2010. And that's actually 2 up from 2008, which is actually saying quite a lot. However, it's made up of multiple different companies. Some are actually emerging market companies, present in emerging markets, and some are actually developed market companies. So for example, the top 5 companies, which haven't actually changed over the last 3 years in terms of ranking, even though the gap between them has shrunk, is Whirlpool, then you have Electrolux, then you have Haier, Bosch, and then LG Group. Whirlpool has quite a big advantage still. And a lot of the sales and the increase in sales and the upturn of the North American market, which grew about 1.9% during 2010, has been helped by a rebate or stimulus program for appliances. And that's actually really kind of driven sales very, very well for Whirlpool. So a lot of people who were assuming there was going to be a 2-year decline, or a continued decline, so should I say, for North America, is actually been proven wrong. But one of the stimulus packages has really driven that forward. But then you have Haier, who has nearly 80% of its sales actually coming from China, and a huge part of that is actually the rural subsidy program, which has been ongoing from 2009 to 2010. So you get a big stimulus package there, which is helping huge growth, and they actually grew 13% in 2010, which is obviously well above anyone else. Those hardest hit in the Major Appliance Millionaires Club are those which are exposed to developed markets, quite simply. So if those developed markets have not done very well, you'll see actually very small growth, or no one in the top 10, for example, has had negative growth at all, but some have posted a growth in terms of regional growth, a similar performance, for example, Bosch and Electrolux. Both of those companies have actually got a growth of about 1.9%. Western European growth, their major regions or accounts for a bulk of their sales, was only a growth of 1% in terms of sellout. Whirlpool, GE, Indesit, the same problems, very exposed to North America for Whirlpool and GE, very exposed to Europe, and also a poorly performing Eastern European market as well. 2009, the recovery of 2010 has been relatively strong. So even if you get a growth of 6%, it's still nowhere near back of sales to pre-2008. There is a lot of emphasis now on maintaining share within Western Europe and also North America, but then moving outside of that, which are the core emerging markets, who has the largest middle-class portfolio for your mid-range, mid-tier products. And that, I think, is really key for those companies who have got a footprint still inside developed markets. The key winners have a high exposure to Asia, and now beginning to get a high exposure to Africa. So say, for example, Electrolux is actually in the middle of acquiring a company called Olympic Group within Egypt. If that acquisition goes through, that will actually increase them in the rankings for Africa and Middle East as a region from 10th to 2nd. That's going to have an impact, obviously, on their top line sales. Africa and Middle East is still emerging, much more emerging than Asia, but there is potential growth and very strong potential long-term growth. One of the other key winners as well is actually Maddrell, who jumped from 8th to 5th, which is actually a very significant jump. But as we said, there's a big gap. 42 million to 29 million for Whirlpool to Electrolux, first and second, and it gets squeezed. So there's another 4 companies which have in the region of 20 to 29 million units sold for 2010. So you can see there is chances of moving up the ranking quite quickly, and Maddrell has done that. For them to take another step next year, equaling what they've managed to do this year in terms of the ranking, it's going to be exceptionally difficult for that company. They're going to have to look outside of China, which is exactly what Haier have been doing. They've actually been looking downstream a little bit more as well. So they're looking at retailing environment, they're looking at logistics, they're securing further market share for their domestic market. I would suggest that Samsung and LG would continue moving up the rankings. They haven't moved up as quickly as the Chinese companies because they haven't got the footprint in terms of unit volumes, and they can't compete and sell into the rural subsidy program because that is, a ceiling price of around $50 to $75 for a refrigerator. Not many companies have a product portfolio to be able to compete there. So LG and Samsung both have a very strong geographical footprint. A lot of sales in Africa, a lot of sales now coming into Latin America. And they obviously have a very strong emerging market portfolio. And now they've got a bit more of a better developed market portfolio, so mid to upper tier products. So I think that we'll see movement from most probably from those two companies. If we talk about outlook for 2011, and I think actually it's quite important to look at outlook for 2012, 2013, 2014 and onwards, we can actually see there is a bit of a development at the moment in terms of R&D spend, innovation. And it's actually quite key that R&D is still very important to everyone, whether that be Whirlpool or Samsung or Haier or Indesit, for example. So Indesit this year put aside, I think, 100, 200 million euros to actually invest in their Schultz brand, the S3. Now, at a time when you've got recessionary impact within Western Europe, it doesn't seem like the best thing to be doing for a premium tier product portfolio. It's actually quite a sensible move for them. They can acquire the knowledge they need to and get ready to reposition that. However, they also are looking outside of the Western European markets. It's not just Western Europe will buy these products. Actually, if you look at the Middle East, there's a lot of spend still in the United Arab Emirates, into Saudi, places like that. That's actually quite key. You look at Russia, Moscow, St. Petersburg, there's still a lot of very wealthy consumers. The rest of Russia, okay, fine, it's not doing so well. And it's coming out of a very difficult period of time. But there are consumers within those markets who crave high-end, high-tier, high-value major appliance products. It's clear there will be an upturn and it will be strong. We may not see it for another 2 years, possibly. But once it is there, then you have to be ready to take advantage. That will increase market share, that will increase unit volumes, and that will ultimately increase the value of the company.